Well, shalom, everyone. Thank you for joining us of TLV Talk today. This is Rabbi Mark Greenberg and
Joe Greenberg.
And we're from the TLV Bible Society. We're here for this segment to talk about the portion or the parsha of Vayechi, which is Genesis chapter 47, verse 28, all the way through to the end of Genesis, which is, I think it's 50, verse 26. So with that being said, we want to talk about, again, every parsha can be 6 or 7 sermons at least. But we want to help you with something that will be good and help you in your families. Because the Bible Society is mostly concerned about families, the restoration of families, the healthiness of families, because healthy families give and make healthy congregations.
Yeah, and the story of Joseph obviously is one for the history books,
yes,
right? Or the book, no pun intended. And the fact is that we get to see kind of the resolution of what happens to Joseph, his brothers, and his father, especially in this week's Torah portion.
And I think it's no coincidence. I think it's designed by God somehow. That this whole area of Joseph's life and the reconciliation that we see at the very end of the book of Genesis comes at the same time as what most Christians celebrate as Christmas. And the thing about Christmas is it's always, and most family holidays, it can be Yom Kippur, Rosh Hashanah. Most families in the Jewish world come over for Rosh Hashanah dinner, Hanukkah, Passover, Easter, and Christmas for most Christians, and that is the gathering of family. And when the family gets together, there's always, seems to be in America, this underpinnings of broken relationships within the family.
Yes. Family gatherings generally bring up not the best memories.
Not the best.
Which, in a way, you have to see Joseph in last Torah portion and the Torah portion before that as sort of a situation where it's a family gathering and the memories aren't so good.
Exactly.
But Joseph's response really is quite telling.
It really is. Let me just give this one other fact out, and that is that it's been documented, and if you look at all of the cases and the occurrences of heart attacks that happen in America and normalize that over the year, on Christmas Eve, the statistics show there's a 40% jump during that time. If you ask me for the source, you can email us. But a 40% increase. That's how much stress comes at family gatherings. So we want to declare to you that inside of this portion is reconciliation of the family. Right. And everybody gets to love each other again. Remember, love God, love each other, live the Bible.
Yeah, and the idea that, reconciliation doesn't happen just once. It continues to happen, that it's a process.
It is a process, and it comes over time. There's no quick fix. So how long was the difference? How long did it take between Joseph happening, all the things that happened to him when his brothers sold him and put him in the pit, to the time that he finally reconciled? From what I read here, it was almost 17 years. And that's a long time to wait. But that's exactly what you have to do.
Right, and in last Torah portion, we finally see, Joseph making the effort to, talk to his brothers, give them the forgiveness that I'm sure that they've been desiring for years. But what's interesting is we see that that's not the end of the story in this week's Torah portion.
So let's go to Genesis chapter 50, the last chapter in the book of Genesis. And in verse 15, we have some text here that gives a understanding.
Yeah, and the interesting thing is it's happening right after Jacob dies.
Exactly, right
so
after.
There's been a little bit of an adjustment in the family dynamic.
So if you set it up, Joseph goes to Pharaoh and said, my dad has died. I'm paraphrasing now. He wants to be buried. We need a couple of days to go out and bury him where he needs to be buried. And all of Joseph's staff in the place where he was. His brothers, caravans, there was mourning. I mean, it was an event to be remembered by Joseph and his brothers. And when they come back, this is where we pick up the story. When Joseph, verse 15 of chapter 50, when Joseph's brothers saw that their father had died, they said, maybe Joseph will be hostile towards us and pay us back in full for all the evil we showed him. So they charged Joseph, saying, before his death, your father gave a command, saying, thus you must say to Joseph, please forgive, I beg you, the transgression of your brothers and their sin, because they treated you wrongly. Therefore, please forgive their transgression of the servants of God of your father. Then Joseph wept when he spoke to them. And his brothers also came and fell down before him and said, behold, we're your slaves.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting because the idea that they're kind of making this up. They're worried that Joseph's forgiveness from last Torah portion
Was going to be
reversed. Exactly. That now that the father is out of the picture, now Joseph can kind of have his way and have his vengeance, which is, from the party that's wronged, Joseph, his brothers are obviously very concerned about this, but it's interesting because it happens right after he actually forgave them.
Oh, yeah.
So they're out of their own volition coming to this conclusion, which, between you and me, I think happens to a lot of families where they've been forgiven, but
they haven't received that forgiveness
Exactly.
And and look at this, behold, we are your slaves. That is the kind of statement that says, in essence, and this is part of reconciliation, we're going to do whatever it takes to reconcile. That's part of it. Joseph, whatever we need to do to be okay together, we'll do. We're your slaves. We'll do whatever you say. And then Joseph goes ahead and says, then Joseph wept and said, let's go to verse 19, I'm sorry. But Joseph said to them, don't be afraid, for am I in the place of God? Yes, you yourselves planned evil against me. God planned it for good in order to bring about what is this day, to preserve the lives of many people. So now, don't be afraid. I myself will provide food for you and your little ones. So he reassured them, speaking kindly to them. It's kind of like a great process that said, you've wronged, Joseph forgave, they haven't received the forgiveness, and they'll say, whatever we have to do. It's a couple of steps that took a long time.
Right, and I think it brings up an interesting idea that, forgiveness, when the dynamics change or the circumstances change.
That's what happens when matriarchs and patriarchs in a family are no longer around. Their personality, their position in the family, kept things cohesive and some kind of a dynamic.
Yeah, teaching, your children and your family to be able to deal with conflict and resolve it and not make it dependent on the parents in the room, I think is really kind of important, because otherwise, a vacuum happens, right?
Yes, it does.
You could feel the air sucked out of the room in this situation.
Absolutely.
And the brothers are like, gosh, we've wronged him. He could do whatever he wants at this point, which is true, right?
He not only had the ability, he had the power, he had the finances, he could have done anything to bring what he wanted to do to pass.
Exactly, but the fact is that it says he reassured them, speaking kindly to them.
That's right.
And this idea of really, reassuring people that you forgive them, it's interesting. You'll tell people you forgive them, and they don't always believe it.
No.
So, this...
It has to be worked on.
Yeah, this is just, I think, a part of the Joseph story that a lot of people kind of overlook.
Right,
people end at... Okay, Joseph reveals himself to his brothers and forgives them, but accepting forgiveness is part of the process too.
Exactly. Well, we could go on and on and on, but we don't have that kind of time. We're so glad you joined us today. God bless you. Go and visit your local synagogue or church. Worship the God of Israel and his son, the Messiah of Israel, Yeshua. And because we're at the end of Genesis, we've closed out one of the books of the Torah. Let us bless you in the way that is traditional in the synagogues, and we make a declaration in Hebrew, which is
Hazak, hazak, v'nit chazek,
which means be strong,
be strong.
be strong.
May you be strengthened.
And let us be strengthened, or something like that.
Yeah.
But be strengthened by the word of God.
Yeah.
God bless you.